All right, when I call your name, please say here. Travis Avery. Brian Teed.
Here.
Stephen Powers. Stephen Powers.
He was, Ann.
I thought I saw his name.
He was here before. I'll just move on. James Lipscomb. James.
I think you're muted, James, if you want to.
I don't know if his audio might not be working. Okay, Bucky Coates.
Here.
Andrea Merritt.
Present.
Frank Price.
Here.
James Moore.
Here.
Marty Bizzle.
Here.
Okay.
Let's see. I think we've got Bucky. I think somehow you shared your screen with us.
I don't know what happened. All of a sudden I've just got 3 pictures on here. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a button. I've done it before too. There's a button there you might have accidentally clicked that said to share your screen. If someone else is welcome to jump in, but there you go. Awesome.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hey guys, can you hear me now?
Yes.
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 Lost Stephen Powers, I think.
Okay.
I don't see him on here.
We'll try to keep an eye out and see if he shows up.
And Michael Granis is here.
Okay. Well, moving on in the agenda here, my next item I had, unless Samantha, you have anything else, is I was going to go over if there were any adjustments to the agenda.
There are none.
Okay. Then we will move on to item number 3, approval of the minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes needed? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Move that we approve the minutes as presented.
Motion to approve by Board Member Lipscomb. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Board Member Coates. I'll turn it over to the Board Clerk for a vote. Did we lose Chrissy?
Can you hear me now?
Oh, there you are. Yes.
Okay. In order to ensure the record accurately reflects the vote for this item, please indicate your vote when I call your name. Brian Teed.
Yes.
Stephen Powers. Oh, he's not here. James Lipscomb.
Yes.
Bucky Coates.
Yes.
Andrea Merritt.
Yes.
Frank Price.
Yes.
James Moore.
Yes.
And Marty Bizzle.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is new business number 5A, 2020-07-SP Sam's Express Car Wash Site Plan. And we'll now hear from staff.
Good evening, board. This is Sharon Sharp. How are you doing today?
Good.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
I can see it. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to present to you this evening the major site plan for Sam's Express Car Wash, which is located at 12856 US Highway 70 Business. Just to give you some reference, if you look at the aerial map, you'll see that it lies between McLaurin's Funeral Home and the Hardys, and then to the east of the Walmart Clayton Town Center along
Sharon, I'm sorry to interrupt. I don't know. Does anyone else hear the feedback? Is there anything we can do about that? And maybe not.
Right. Sharon, if
Awesome.
you're on your phone and your computer, just mute your computer somehow and just use the phone so we can have better quality, please.
How about now?
Still hear that feedback.
What about now?
Still there.
Hard to tell. It seems like it might be better. Do you want to try your next sentence?
Okay, how about now?
Okay,
That
that
better?
seems good. Thank you so much.
Okay, so let me start back and finish. And so as I was stating, this major site plan is for a automated car wash building, a vacuum canopy, as well as this car wash will have gas sales. It's approximately 3.75 acres and it is zoned highway business. If you take a look at the site plan, you'll see the site plan shows you, in fact, the car wash building on the site, as well as this is the proposed landscaping layout. The car wash is automated and it does have the ability to bring cars into the site and queue them around the building so that we prevent any type of backing out along the highway there. They are proposing to do sidewalks along the access road there. And the average parking is going to be about 31 parking spaces, which will be including 2 for ADA handicap accessibility. A little bit of information about the actual car wash building. The car wash building will also have a outdoor seating, and the applicant is proposing to do some aluminum fencing to keep the pedestrians that'll be sitting in that area out of the way of cars as they exit the automated car wash building. As you can see, they've submitted architectural renderings, and this is the elevation of the building of the car wash, and it includes brick with metal banding, as well as metal awnings that meet our UDC code requirement here. The building maximum height at build out will be about 28 feet. They are proposing dumpsters as well as a vending machine area for customers to utilize. And all of that will in fact match the primary building, which is the automated car wash on site. This is the view along US Highway 70. As you go across the street, you'll see that this was the previous Camptown RV park along US Highway 70. This project is consistent with the future land use map as well as the comp plan, and this site has been designated as an area that would be best used as a community center. And as you all know, community centers are best utilized along major thoroughfares such as US Highway 70. I'm not sure, but I believe that Matt Louder, whom is the applicant, should be on the phone if the board should have any additional questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for staff at this point? All right. Then.
Just one, Andrea.
Yeah.
Sharon, did NCDOT have any comments on the drives as they proposed?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Did NCDOT have comments on their driveway locations?
Did you hear that question okay, Sharon?
Yes.
Okay.
So they did have some feedback that they provided to the applicant about how that site shifted over to the right to make sure that as customers exit off of 70, they would slow their speed down by shifting the site layout for access into the driveway.
Okay. Thank you, Sharon.
Any other questions for staff?
Yes, I have. I'm concerned about this site plan because of the entry and the exit location as related to that intersection there. And the reason I have my concern is because of the problems we had when the American Pride card opened up there, that car wash, and that's on Highway 7 and next to Char Grill. It's now Zip's car wash. But, and that's a smaller operation than Sam's is going to be. And we even somebody had to put a stop sign out to be able to get the cars out of that into that drive-through in the area there. And there's only, what my concern is, there's only a 3-car backup or where you can get down there at the stoplight. You can't turn left out of there because you've got private drive, to the left of it, McLaurin. If you turn to the right, you're going away from Clayton. You'd be going to Garner. You could do that way. But you've only got 3 cars that can go down in there. And it looks to me like that the cars are going to back up into the car wash. I'm not an engineer or anything, but it looks to me like that if you would, and I don't know this could be, if you completely flip this, it would put the entry and exit farther up where they can come in and have a more, staging area for cars to get back on Highway 70. I'm predicting that this particular plan is going to be a major intersection problem right there with that stoplight, because it's a long stoplight the first way, because they try to get traffic through Clayton on Highway 70 and the ones that are coming in on other areas. I'm really concerned with this project because of the way that's putting the traffic right there in that area. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Coates, for those comments. Anyone else have questions for staff at this point? Okay, if not, we'll go ahead at this time and call on the applicant.
Hello, Matt Louder. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yes, so I appreciate everyone's time tonight. To answer your question, Mr. Coates, yes, we did work with DOT on this. We looked at multiple scenarios for access for this development. We wanted 2 full movement accesses into the customers into and out of the site, but also fire trucks as well as fuel trucks coming into and out and serving the development. In working with Sam Lawhorn over at the District Engineering Office for NCDOT, we worked with him to come up with this solution. Funeral home side of the development. That would be a 2-way driveway just up against the funeral home, that side of the project.
Hey, Matt, sorry, yes. I just want to let you know, you skip out every once in a while. So far, we can kind of piece it together, but I just wanted to make you aware of that.
Oh, okay. Not sure what I can do, but I'll speak slowly.
We'll try our best.
Okay, I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
Lines up directly with the signal to make that an exit only from our site. He didn't want cars coming into the property off 70 and creating a 4-way stop there and creating a traffic jam or traffic. I guess a review and revisions that we've made in response to DOT concerns about traffic in this area.
Let's see. I kind of pieced most of that together. Mr. Coates, Chair Member Coates, were you able to hear that? Do we want to try to get that repeated?
I understand, and I understand the Department of Transportation wanting to get the traffic off of Highway 70. My concern is, and it's based on the problem we had in Clayton at this other car wash, and they've got like 10 vacuum stations. This site's going to have twice that many more. They're also going to have gas pumps in there. And to me, you know, again, I went up there yesterday at 2:30. There were 3 cars backed up going both ways. One wanted to go in the right lane. When you come out of there going right straight down, the right lane can either turn right or go straight across. All 3 of the cars in that right lane at 2:30 yesterday afternoon were trying to go across to the Walmart. The 3 on the left were trying to get to the left to come back to Clayton. If somebody had come out of that driveway, they would have blocked the road, the street, from people coming off of Highway 70, going to Hardee's, going to anywhere down there. Now, people can go to Hardee's and go further down there. I understand that. But a lot of people don't do that. And then again, I went there this morning at 9:30. The left lane was again, actually, there were 3 cars in the left lane. There was no cars in the right lane. And there was 2 cars waiting at the stop sign there to get in the left lane. So, and I don't know, you know, and you're going to have a stop sign, or maybe you have the right of way, because there is a stop sign for that other traffic. And once the stoplight turns green, your people would be able to come up. But from a business standpoint, I just envisioned, because we had that at this other car wash location, they couldn't get out of there into a feeder. And this even looks worse than that to me. You know, and I think I know what DOT, you know, they want to get people off Highway 70. I'm not so sure, and maybe somebody can correct me, I'm not so sure that DOT is concerned about how people get out of that location.
Thank you, Board Member Coates. So it sounds like, you know, you've given your follow-up thoughts about Mr. Louder's presentation, or that answering your question. And so it sounds like you're asking, in addition, do we know if DOT looks into what's happening with traffic flow once people have exited off of 70? And I don't know if you know the answer to that, Mr. Louder.
Not off the top of my head, I can't speak for their full review. I know we do have obviously cross access with multiple driveways on 270. You know, there will be a stop condition. If you're coming from the Hardee's towards the signal, they'll have a stop in front of our site. And then there would also be a stop, you know, in front, people coming from the funeral home side. And so that was all part of their considerations for the signal there and just their capacity for the site.
Okay, well, thank you for addressing that portion. Then if you had the rest of your presentation or what else you wanted to say, you feel free to proceed at this time.
Okay, now really we just wanted to see what questions you have and just be here to answer any concerns you may have about our site.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone, planning board members or town employees, do any of us happen to know if DOT does analyze the traffic situation once the traffic's off of Highway 70? Would they have weighed in on the traffic flow on that side drive there? Does anyone know?
Well, Andrew, I think you know, this is just kind of speculating on DOT a little bit, but I think the issue here is that the drive cuts are actually on private property. You know, they're going in, you know, 2 drives on the cross-access easement. The only drive that DOT actually has is the existing drive there with the signal. And I think that's what they're looking at. And to Mr. Coates' point, they are looking to get the traffic off more so than I think to get the traffic on, because that drive is a private drive, not a DOT maintained road. And just while I'm talking, I really share Bucky's points in that, you know, we've got opposing drives now. We've got actually 2 driveway cuts very, very close together, which is really not preferred at all. And, you know, I think Bucky had a great point, and it almost, and I thought the same thing, it almost works better if you flip the site, maybe flip the drives, you know, as far as location goes. So, you know, not to not to repeat a lot of what Bucky said, but I totally agree with what he said. So
I asked Mr. Louder something. Mr. Louder, can that site be flipped completely? And the reason I ask that is that, you know, you still are going to get your traffic off of Highway 70 to keep the DOT happy, but it puts your people coming out of your place a way to back up further to get out of there, and not back up, but to get on the, you know, the entrance to get on the Highway 70. And they also have the option, they still can go to the right. You can go down and make a U-turn on Highway 70 and come back to Clayton. But I really believe that most of your customers are going to be from Clayton and going to want to be headed back towards Clayton. And that just looks to me like if that site plan was flipped, that would give you further, when they come out of your site plan, then they can get on the right, go across and get on the right lane coming out of there. And that gives you probably 7 or 8 cars to back up instead of 3. And I think that would help. And then the others that could go to the right and go towards Garner or whatever, because there's another exit or entry to Highway 70 down there closer to the you know, parties down in there that comes right out if somebody's going to the right. So they're not, you know, they're not there. And I'm not an engineer, and I don't know if that creates a major problem for you, but and I'm looking at you as a customer, because I know what I was a customer at that other one until they put up that stop sign to get us out of that site. We were backed up trying to get out of the car wash area and vacuum area. We couldn't get out of there.
Well, I will make a couple points. First, any stacking that we do have currently that would be coming into our site. So they would be stacking into private property. So it's not going to be blocking a driveway. One issue with Sam's is that just the way their sites function, it would not be possible. They just the way traffic flows through their car washes, they just cannot physically flip the site. It's not that easy for them. Just the way they have to maneuver, the way their car wash is set up, cars maneuver through their properties. Their sites are always on, as you would look at it like this one, on the left side, so that people are exiting their tunnels left. And so they're just not able to bring cars in the other direction. You know, for this one, actually, it works well just so that cars, the way it flows to their site, we're trying to get people off the highway so we're not creating any of the backups. And like I said, I know you're concerned about stacking, but what stacking there is would again be on private property into our site and then onto a secondary road that people, no matter what, if our site's flipped or if it's kept like it is, they're going to find their way to the signal. Probably like you mentioned, that's probably going to be the key driveway, but either way, they will have access to 2 points on 70.
I'm not worried about the stacking coming in. I'm worried about the stacking coming out. But if you're comfortable, it's your customer and everything, and you've answered my question, it's not feasible to switch it. But I'm going to predict that you're going to have some really upset customers trying to get out of your location and get back to Clayton. I'm good.
Hey, Andrea, can I chime in a little bit on the TRC process? So they did, DOT and engineering did work with the applicant during the TRC review on the driveway layout and the location. During that process, it was determined that this was the best option for that area. And it does meet our code requirements for planning.
Thank you for that clarification. I think that helps. I appreciate you bringing it up, Board Member Coates, and I appreciate your answer, Mr. Louder. Anything else that you want to say as the applicant or any other questions for the applicant at this time?
I'm good.
Madam Chair, this is Michael. I actually have another question of staff, if I may.
Absolutely.
With respect to the facade, obviously there is a percentage of the facade that is metal. And I could be wrong, but I believe our code calls for brick or masonry on all 4 sides. Don't know if it's 100%, but if you could speak to that, I would appreciate it.
Yes, so the code actually, what it says is that it has to be architecturally consistent on all sides of the building, but we don't specify materials in the code.
So this is a hypothetical.
Mm-hmm.
If that building were nothing but metal, that would be within our code?
It would at this time. That's something that during TRC process, we typically talk about design, but based on what our code says, it just has to be architecturally consistent on all 4 sides. It doesn't specify materials.
The reason I'm hesitating is I seem to recall at a council meeting many months ago that this was brought up, and I could be mistaken, but I thought the council had made it clear that we had to have either brick or masonry on all 4 sides. And I'm going to have to defer, I think, maybe to Samantha. I could be wrong, but I seem to recall that as far as a requirement change.
So it's a little bit different depending on what it is. If it's a plan development or a quasi-judicial process, there's a little bit more regulations and conditions and such that can be placed on an application. So a lot of times if you see a special use permit that has a major site plan associated with it, we can have more input on the aesthetics of the building due to the type and the nature of those types of projects. We do have design guidelines that are referenced in our code, but again, those are guidelines, those are not code. So as we are working through, we're doing 160D now, and then the UDC rewrite, we will definitely be looking at this. But again, a major site plan is not a quasi-judicial process. A lot of places, these are approved administratively and don't even go to a board. So we do work with applicants, and we all know that we want the best for Clayton. So this is what they have worked out. But moving forward in the future, that is something we will definitely be taking a look at. We try to make sure it's also consistent with the surrounding buildings. But I did think we took a good step in the right direction whenever we did the building has to be architecturally consistent on all sides. So that prevents your three facades are brick, and then the back is all metal. And we will make sure that the elevations stay like this. We've had a few instances where between site plan approval and then CDs and then building permits, some things get changed a little bit and they have to get back before the board. They have to really do some changes to make sure it is what is consistent with what the board approved. But again, long story, rambling, but the reason that at the council meetings is because you guys look at quasi-judicial items. And this is somewhat administrative.
Thank you.
Thank you for that answer, Samantha. And are there any other questions at this time for staff or applicant?
I have one for the applicant. The site seems to be where they will have problems is up at the 70 side. It looks like there's plenty of room on the back side of the lot, and I wondered if the whole site could just be pushed a little bit further back to give a little more stacking room when they get to that frontage road on 70.
Okay, so Mr. Price's question, I don't know, Mr. Louder or Samantha, if you need to weigh in on that.
I mean, that is a possibility. So site plans you cannot condition a site plan. But if they want to move it back, they possibly could.
Well,
I think
it's
the
just-
safest solution would be for them to come back and instead of saying, if a motion was to be made, and we vote to approve based on them moving the whole design back X amount of feet. That's not really something that for a site plan that we can do. So it would be probably they'd have to come back before the board next month with a different design if that is the wishes of the board. But again, this does meet code. It meets all code requirements. And I don't know if there's any topography. There might be environmental features. There could be water sewer issues. There could be multiple different issues of why they didn't push it back, but I will leave it up to Mr. Louder to explain further.
And there is a compatibility buffer to the north. It abuts residential as you get back towards this property boundary line.
Right. Several of the things we did consider is, yes, there are buffers that we were trying to maneuver around as we laid out the site. Obviously, there's implications when you talk about utilities, especially talking stormwater and adding additional impervious area for adding more drive aisles. We were really trying to keep this site as tight and as efficient as we can and still keep open space, but also obviously maintain buffers and meet the other criteria for the site. Again, any stacking that we do have will be coming into the site itself. Moving the site back really wouldn't alleviate that much. It would just kind of move the problem a little bit, but still stacking would occur within our site versus towards the public road. I do know we do have a gentleman from Sam's Xpress on this call, Chris Morgan. I think he wanted to jump in a little bit as well to talk about operations and how they function and about flipping the site as well. So I don't know if Chris can jump in.
Thanks, Matt. Hopefully everybody can hear me. Board, I do appreciate you taking the time to review our site plan. I've been listening to some of the comments and wanted to sort of tell you how the operations work. As far as stacking is concerned, right now, you would basically be stacking from the end of the fuel canopy all the way to the back and around the bend and into the car wash. And then basically when you come out of the tunnel, you're going to be doing that same amount of stacking as far as car wash is concerned before they even hit the fuel. And Matt, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you've probably got a good 300 to 350 foot of stacking that you're going to have as far as people going into the car wash and people coming out of the car wash. So this site actually is got quite a bit more stacking than what most of our normal sites do, just because of the depth of the site. I hope that sort of helps a little bit as far as the stacking is concerned. Flipping the site, we typically do not like to do what we call a, right out of a tunnel, because when you do a right out of a tunnel, you start crossing traffic when you're starting to leave the site, which is a little bit, you could call a traffic issue. So that is one of the reasons that we tend to have the building on the left-hand side of the site and not the right-hand side. I hope you can follow me when I'm saying that, but when they come out of the tunnel now, they're basically making a left out. If you do it to the right, they're going to be making a right out, which is pretty backwards from what we normally do. And again, it does cause traffic situations because you are going to have to cross traffic at some point. And my last point, on the building, we do not have very much metal at all on the building. The majority of our building is either brick or EPIS. We do have some metal panels that are between the two storefront sections at the lobby. You'll sort of see it in that darker section right there above the door. That sort of wraps the front. And then the only other metal features that we have on the building are the two trellis, the red trellis, and then a red bar that runs just below the EPIS above the storefront. That is the only metal that we have on our buildings. The rest of it is brick and EPIS. We tend to shy away from the metal looks, and we try to make our are building more appealing than most other car washes.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, this is Michael. I'd like to thank you for that clarification, and I'm going to now show my ignorance. Could you explain to me what EFS is?
It is a sort of, I'm assuming you've heard of stucco.
Yes.
EFS is a exterior, it's basically stucco, except it uses foam behind the board. I mean, behind the actual cement finish. So it's like a exterior insulation finishing system, I believe it is. But it's pretty much like stucco.
I want to thank you for that clarification, and I appreciate the education.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant or staff at this time?
Andrew, I just a question for Haley, kind of a follow-up on going back to the drives. Is there anything in the code that would restrict the two drives being so close together?
Not in the planning code. I believe that would be in the engineering guidelines, but again, engineering did review this and they did find it acceptable for their requirements.
Yeah, I guess to me it just seems just very unusual to have that, to have two driveway cuts that close together. And I understand one is one way, but the other is, full access. So I guess for the applicant, do you feel that both drives are absolutely necessary?
Yes, sir. That was one of the reasons. I was actually fixing to chime in on that. Is there a way you could go back to the site plan real quick? Thank you. The drive that you have on the rightmost is it's a two-way drive. It's an in and an exit. The reason that we have the exit only on the left-hand side of the canopy is basically for truck maneuverability. We have to be able to get the fuel truck in and around the fuel canopy. And if we did not have that one drive, he would not be able to circle the canopy and be able to get out. Originally, we had two-way drives. Both of them were, but the DOT nixed that and said that we could only have an exit only on that one drive. And the reason that, again, we have that is so the truck can come in, circle the canopy, and then leave out that one drive, just so he can maneuver.
And likewise, that'd be for fire trucks as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Good question. Anything else for the applicant or staff at this time? Okay, do we know if there's anyone else in the audience or dialed in here who is wanting to speak on this matter? Okay, then at this time, I will turn it over to the board for their consideration. So planning board members, feel free to make your comments now.
This is James Moore. I move that we approve the major site plan.
Okay, I have a motion to approve by board member Moore. Is there a second? There is not a second. Okay, well, let's do this. Let's turn it over to the board for further discussion. For myself, it sounds like, well, I was actually kind of waiting to hear a little more deliberation about it. I do have concerns. I share the concerns with the traffic issue. I go to that area a lot, and at that stoplight on that side of the street, there are major issues that happen. I've got to say, in hearing the applicants speak about the matter, I am relieved that it sounds like DOT has weighed in pretty significantly on this. If there weighing in on the type of drives that are there, and they've considered the fuel truck needs and that sort of thing. I was reassured to hear that. But just as a customer who uses that area and knowing kind of how bad traffic already is there, to think of kind of adding something to this magnitude to that area does concern me. I was hoping to hear from other board members where you're standing on this. Feel free to chime in any thoughts you have about it.
So Andrea, I was just.
Can we have, this is James Moore. Can we have discussion without a second?
Samantha,
motion fails and we move on.
I'm not sure. This is the first time I've had that happen.
I don't believe we can have further discussion without a second. The motion will fail and we would move on.
The motion dies without a second, but you can still deliberate and somebody can make another motion. You can't just move on. It has to be either approved, denied, or tabled. Correct, Merrick?
That's right. So the motion that didn't get a second essentially died on the table. So now the planning board is welcome to deliberate further, see if there's another motion to be made.
Thank you for that clarification.
And this is Samantha Willenweber, Planning Director. Just for clarification, this does meet the code requirements and it is TRC certified by all departments, internal and external. So just for clarification.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah, that does also factor in here. I mean, they have gone through the process and it has been reviewed. I'm just sort of pausing here, deliberating for myself as well. I'm not at this point either comfortable introducing a motion to deny, which is what it sounds like we would have to have right now. Is that correct?
No, I mean, somebody can make another motion to approve. You can make a motion to approve, deny, or table. Just because there's been one motion to approve and it did not get a second at that time, somebody else can make another motion to approve. But your options are motion to approve, motion to deny, or motion to table. But not doing anything is not an option.
Okay.
Madam Chairman.
Point I was trying to make. Go ahead.
Can you hear me? This is James Lipscomb.
Yeah.
I share the concern about the traffic there because I frequent that area a lot. And what I find is that you have a lot of vehicles stacking in that intersection. So, with more people coming in, because I've always heard good things about this car wash or this company, but with more people coming in, I'm very concerned about people getting stuck on Highway 70 and it possibly causing a backup on Highway 70 because you've got people coming out and basically stacking through that intersection, because that's happening now. I think it would be prudent to ask the applicant to look at the traffic patterns along the access road and, if improvements or stop conditions need to be made on that access road to try to prevent that stacking, because right now every time I go out there, that's one reason why I don't frequent that area as much, because it is hard to get out and also get in as cars are stacking in the middle of that intersection. So personally, I would like to ask to table this for a month and have them come back after they've looked at that entire access road and offer some solutions and be proactive about this instead of reactive.
Thank you, Board Member Lipscomb. Any other thoughts from board members?
Andrea, I would support tabling this, and I understand it meets the UDO and it's been certified. But just like so many have said tonight, the traffic patterns, knowing the traffic issues out there now, I don't feel good about adding to those problems. I just see a major problem if we approve it as it is. I would just ask the applicant to go back and look at the drive locations, maybe condensing the drives into one, possibly, getting rid of the opposing drives, try to line things up, add as much stacking as possible. Just look and see if there are other alternatives before we give this project a green light. So I'd certainly be in favor of tabling it for next month.
And I'd like to add, my concern is more people stacking in the intersection of the cross access road. But I do believe that there's plenty of stacking on site. But what happens when that person pulls out and ends up in the middle of that intersection? So the person that's coming in off of Highway 70 can't make a left on the access road to access all the other businesses that are already out there. That's my biggest concern.
Thank you. I will say just one more thought I'm throwing out here as well. The other car wash that you mentioned, Board Member Coates, that area does strike me as similar just for the fact that there's limited access getting in and out of there. And I know just as a resident, I've kind of adapted to that area. I kind of know that when I try to get in and out of there, it's going to be a pain. And like you said, they've added the stop sign. And so I guess I say that to say that I do respect our process here. I know that the applicant has gone through many steps to get to this point, and I do respect the process that we have and that DOT has to review this sort of thing. But I'm okay with also postponing a vote for a month and just make sure that we don't create this situation again if it's at all avoidable. So if there aren't any further comments, I will entertain a motion for is there a specific way we need to word this for tabling it until the next planning board meeting?
If that was to be the motion, I would say the motion should be a request to continue, a motion to continue this item to the next regularly scheduled planning board meeting. That way it's continuing to a date and time certain, and there would be no requirement to republish.
I just wanted to quickly comment, Andrea. I appreciate the work that you guys have put into presenting this tonight. I didn't want to go ahead and try to, armchair design your site for you, but I share Marty's and James's comments about the stacking and the site access. I don't know, if it's going to be something that would kind of alleviate concerns of the board to eliminate that one-way out access, but it looked like you guys had widened the northern side of the fuel island to make that turning radius work for, I don't know if that's for fire trucks as well as the fuel truck, but it looks like that top side got widened a little bit. And if the site, if there wouldn't be any buffers to the north to the residential area impacted, maybe could widen the south side to avoid having to make that one-way out cut and avoid having those two cuts pretty close to each other on that private side of 70. But just a thought. And I don't know if you'd taken that into account already and decided it wasn't feasible.
Thank you for your comments, Board Member Teed. Anything else the board wants to say at this point in time?
Well, being a traffic engineer, I'm going to have to jump in. I realize DOT reviewed it, but there's some really potentially serious problems with it. The main thing is that frontage road never should have been allowed to go in that close to 70, but it did. I objected to it then, but that's neither here nor there at this point. I would certainly recommend that it go back for further study on the traffic issues, and at least make that if the site out is going to line up with the intersection, then it would be best to have a one-way in down at the other place and a one-way out there. That would separate the traffic and help out with the situation. And it still may be possible, if I'm not sadly mistaken, that's the state farm behind it to the north. And so it may be zoned residential, but it's certainly, the use of it is certainly in the state experimental farm or NC State's farm. So that shouldn't really be a problem if the topography would allow. The layout of the site internally is fine. It's just getting in and out of there on that frontage road, being so close to 70. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Price, for your comments. Anything else from the board? If not, I believe we are saying that we will entertain a motion for a continuance until the July 2020 Planning Board meeting.
I so move.
I have a motion by Board Member Price. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second by Board Member Lipscomb. And now I will turn it over to the board clerk for voting.
Okay, in order to ensure the record reflects the vote for this item, please indicate your vote when I call your name. Brian Teed.
Yes.
James Lipscomb.
Yes.
Bucky Coates.
Yes.
Andrea Merritt.
Yes.
Frank Price.
Yes.
James Moore.
No.
And Marty Bizzle.
Yes.
Motion carries. Our next order of business is item number 6A, old business. That is 2020-17-RZ Tract on Powhatan Road Rezoning. This item will be deliberated and voted on this evening. The public hearing was held on May 26, 2020, and comments were accepted from the public hearing until midnight, May 27, 2020. The board clerk will now announce and read into record any comments that were received. If none, the board clerk will state that no comments have been received.
We did receive some comments. We received an email from Teresa and Jesse Scott. And she wrote, in regards to the virtual meeting held May 26, 2020, to discuss the rezoning of 22 acres of the vacant land on Powhatan Road, I submit the following. As I stated previously in my letter to the planning board, my husband and I object to this parcel being rezoned to I-1 from RE. While rezoning might fit into the 2040 plan for Clayton, it does not allow for quality of life for residents who live here. In addition, it does not take into account the wildlife in this area and the need to maintain their habitat. This area is rich with groundhogs, deer, opossum, beaver, and many species of birds, just to name a few. Furthermore, this area is rich with history and culture. At the meeting last night, it was obvious that the town of Clayton wishes to pave over much of our rural property. The traffic congestion, overcrowding of schools, diminished quality of life for residents does not seem to concern the planning board. Is this really what Clayton is becoming, money motivated at the expense of its citizens? Is that what we want to be known for? When Mr. Keynes offered a recommendation to approve the rezoning, it was obvious that our opposition would most likely not matter in the big scheme of things. I find it quite sad that Clayton intends to bring more and more industry to our community with little regard for the reason many people live here and have moved here from other areas. I respectfully ask that the planning board consider our position and reject this rezoning request at this time. If the long-term plan is for 2040, what exactly is the hurry to rezone now in 2020? Leave our community alone and let us absorb the progress that has already invaded our area. Let the dust settle, so to speak, before adding insult to injury. Give us time to evaluate our situation and make adjustments as we feel led. Do not force us to be surrounded by industry or to move unwillingly. Sincerely, Teresa Scott. Another email from Larry Smith. Thank you for the opportunity of participating in the virtual public meeting held May 26th on subject. Mr. Jeff Keynes, town planner, stated at the onset of the meeting that the staff recommends approval of this request. So it's obvious that the planning staff had already made up its mind before hearing any public comments. But I do appreciate the opportunity to express my concerns with this rezoning request and hope that the board will see fit to reject this rezoning in spite of the planning staff's position. Some of our concerns were set forth in our letter of March 14th, which was read into the record by the clerk. We apologize for our letter not being addressed properly. At the time we sent the letter, those were the names shown for the ETJ members of the planning board on the town's website. We do request that Ms. Freeman make sure all current board members have a copy of that 3/14/20 letter and also are furnished a copy of this email. In addition to current concerns expressed in our letter, I stated in the public hearing my concern that the adjoining property west, north, and east of the property is all zoned RE. Mr. Keynes had stated that the proposed rezoning was consistent with the lands west of this property, and that is incorrect. Therefore, none of the adjoining property on the north side of Powhatan Road is zoned I-1. This appears to me to be a spot or leapfrog zoning. This was one of the main reasons rezoning of this property was not recommended by the planning board in 2014. At that time, they also found that this proposed rezoning would not be compatible with surrounding properties. The only physical changes that have occurred in this area since 2014 is that even more single-family housing has been added east along Powhatan Road, and Novo is building its new facility across Powhatan Road from our property and subject property. At least now, Powhatan Road provides some separation between Novo's south side, industrial property, and RE properties on the north side of the road. If this rezoning is approved, there will no longer be any separation. During the public hearing, the only real reason I heard that the requested rezoning should be allowed is that it is in line with the comprehensive plan of 2040. I am just a regular county citizen and did not even know about the 2040 plan until this rezoning request. I know I did not have any input into this plan, and I doubt seriously that any of my neighbors did either. What changed between 2014 and 2015? Novo's plan expansion. While we're not particularly happy that they were building across the road, we didn't object to it because of the great good they could do for a lot of people with their products. But the noise, dust, vibrations, and traffic have been much worse than we ever imagined. Hopefully, once construction is completed, this will finally improve. Please keep Powhatan Road as a separation between the I-1 and RE zone properties from Novo's original facility eastward, but not approving this requested rezoning. The only other reason for rezoning this property at this time would to be enhance Mr. Oringer's return on his investment in the property. According to the numbers I know of and have heard tossed about, Mr. Oringer stands to obtain approximately an 800% return on his original investment if this rezoning is approved. Well, that would be great for Mr. Oringer. Our property and others is not vacant property, and greater value is in my 12-year-old home, not my 2 acres of land, less than 2 acres of land. Or I'm sorry, greater than. This proposed rezoning will have significant negative personal financial impact on our property and property of others. For all the previously stated and above reasons, we respectfully request that the planning board disapprove this rezoning request. Sincerely, Larry and Linda Smith. And there was also a voicemail left for on May 27th at 4:51 from Ann Sutherland that she is opposed to the rezoning on Powhatan Road. And then, go ahead.
Oh, that's it. Go ahead.
Well, this wasn't a public comment, but Mark Jones, the appraiser, he spoke the last time. Did you want me to read that? It's not a public comment.
I'm not sure, Samantha, how does that part work? Or Merrick, do we need to read his, is it his transcript from the last meeting?
It's not that long. I can just read it real quick. Chrissy and Jeff, this is Mark Jones, appraiser. I offered commentary on Powhatan Road rezoning last night, and I had a comment that I wanted to offer, but could not bring it to the forefront of my mind. I will blame that on age, but here it is. In the discussion of the impact that a commercial rezoning can have on value of adjoining lands, and thought this is a higher profile example, the purchase of several residential parcels on the corner of US 70 and Rose Street for the Sheets store in late 2014, early 2018, led to the rezoning in August of 2019 of 3 residential parcels and a vacant lot on the other side of Rose Street, which resulted in a total purchase price of $1.8 million. This can be directly attributed to the pattern set by the Sheets project. And over time, it is highly likely that this will lead to the remainder of the WRPLSD following suit. I thank you for the opportunity to provide the added information. And if you will, please let me know that this made it to you. Mark P. Jones. And that's it.
Thank you, Chrissy. I believe at this time we will now hear from staff. Am I correct with that, Samantha? My apologies. This is just a new process for me too, so making sure.
Yes, that's correct. It's just going to be a very brief presentation on very, very brief of what we're discussing, just for the record and for the YouTube video and all that.
Thank you.
Good evening, Board Chair Merritt and other members of the Planning Commission. My name is Jeff Keynes. I'm a land use planner with the town of Clayton, and I'm here to just briefly recap. There we go. Hope everyone can see the screen. Recap the events of the planning board of last month. This is to rezone a tract of land on Powhatan Road. As you can see, the property is zone RE, and it's going to move to I-1. It's still located about 1,200 feet west of Powhatan Road. As you can, currently the property is zoned RE and is proposed for rezoning of, again, I-1. As mentioned in one of the comments, the consistency portion of it, this is the comprehensive plan, and you do see that the property to the west is consistent with this property for the comprehensive plan uses. And if you recall, the staff does recommend approval of the rezone. And as you heard, there were public comments that were submitted to the town because the planning board did leave public comments open for an additional 24 hours. And Chrissy just read them. So you are hopefully familiar with them. I do believe we have the applicant, David Oranger, with us as well. So if you have any questions for myself or for him, feel free to ask. But I do believe this is an opportunity not to submit new information, but to just clarify of anything that took place last time. Is that correct?
Let me jump in there. So this isn't, the public hearing was closed, correct, Merrick? And this is just the deliberation between the board and the vote. I merely had staff to do the presentation just for the record so everyone could see what we were voting on, and just as a refresher. And I did want to go over how staff come to their decisions on recommendations for legislative type decisions. Anything that's quasi-judicial, we do not make recommendations on, but a rezoning is not quasi-judicial, it is legislative in the processes that the general statutes allow us to do. And so according to general statutes, we have to have a guiding document that guides how our town will grow. That document was adopted in 2015, and we are actually just starting getting underway with updating that, because it's something that should be updated every 5 years. And we've grown so much, and that is such a fast rate that we are updating that now. And as you can see, the comprehensive plan, it did dictate that for that to be employment center. So it is consistent with a comprehensive plan. It is not spot zoning because it is directly across from another property that is zoned industrial, and spot zoning is actually, it is not illegal in North Carolina. So that is a point of clarification. That is a misconception, but spot zoning is not illegal. And this would not be considered spot zoning because of the industrial directly across the street. So any sort of right of way, body of water, say this was across the Moose River type of instance, those different scenarios, you do not account for the right of way. Basically, it's considered abutting or adjoining. So that is how the staff makes their decisions. We review it as a team, and then we formulate for rezonings based on the different guiding documents that we have and what we see in the area. We look at multiple different factors, including growth, current uses, future uses, how the other areas are. And so I would definitely, Chrissy has the information of the people who submitted comments who wanted to be included on the comprehensive plan. So we will definitely be including them on this update so that they can have a say, just as all the rest of the now 25,000 people in Clayton will have a say. But we will be sure to personally reach out and make sure that they are aware of the document that we use to guide our decisions and our growth.
Thank you, Samantha. So to clarify, the public hearing has already happened. There's no new information added at this time. This is really just a chance for the board to deliberate as needed, leaving off from last time, and proceed then with a motion and a vote. So that being said, are there any planning board members at this time who have comments or questions that they would like to share?
Yes, I would like to share. I was on the planning board in 2014. I voted to not allow this, but to address what the people have talked about, what changed, and between then and now was the adoption of the 2040 comprehensive plan. And I would state now for the record that advisory committee included citizens of the town of Clayton. It included business people in the town of Clayton. It included town council members. It included town staff. It included the planning board. And a number of meetings were held for input from citizens of the town of Clayton. Everyone had their say-so and everything. And the 2040 comprehensive plan was adopted on October 5th, 2015, and that changed a lot from when we denied the project in 2014. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Board Member Coates, any other comments from the board? If there are none, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to recommend approval by the town council.
Motion to approve by Board Member Coates. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Board Member Bizzle. And is there any further discussion? If not, I'll turn it over to the board clerk for voting.
In order to ensure the record reflects the vote for this item, please indicate your vote when I call your name. Brian Teed,
Yes.
James Lipscomb,
Yes.
Bucky Coates,
Yes.
Andrea Merritt,
Yes.
Frank Price,
Yes.
James Moore,
Yes.
Marty Bizzle.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is old business number 6B, 2020-22-PDD shops at Glen Laurel Plan Development Rezoning. This item will be deliberated and voted on this evening. The public hearing was held on May 26, 2020, and comments were accepted from the public hearing until midnight, May 27th, 2020. The board clerk will announce and read into record any comments that were received. If none were received, the clerk will state no comments have been received.
So we actually received about 7 comments on this. They're not long, they're short. The first one is from retired Lieutenant Commander Shannon C. Peterson, retired U.S. Navy. Ms. Freeman, I am writing to try and understand what is being done on Glen Laurel Road and 42. In asking for a zoning change, there is no comment or understanding of what will be on the property if the rezoning is approved. What is the plan for the site? Why do they want to change the plan now? I have a feeling that they want more apartments instead of going with the original plan. I am totally against that. We have enough traffic problems now since the town is allowing people to build anywhere they want. It uses resources, power, water, sewer, etc. The town has allowed sprawling development without addressing the need of the town. Infrastructure, public safety, green space, school overcrowding, etc. Having a planning commission that looks inward versus outward. The town has destroyed our quiet, beautiful town and filled it with nothing but housing sprawl. I don't believe that people are looking 20 years down the road. That probably should have never been allowed to put apartments on it in the first place. Apartments do not get you anything except a small payroll tax collection. But it gives it is a consumption of resources, more traffic, and crime. The town needs to stop putting the interest of builders in front of its citizens and start putting the current citizens first. Start working for the people. Stop building on every piece of land. You have destroyed our town. He also wrote in the second email as a reply to Haley Hogue. So an additional 120 apartments has no impact. Doesn't take a traffic engineer with a civil engineering degree to figure out is out to lunch. Clayton and Johnson County are ranked around 7th for accidents. Wonder why? It is not rocket science. You keep adding apartments like that is needed. Again, you are not planning, because if you were, you would be looking 20 years out and see nothing but a train wreck is about to happen. You folks are very closed-minded and do not look to the future. You are only concerned about the developers and not the citizens. You will approve the request no matter what anyone says because you don't care about the citizens of Clayton. The county commissioners know that the county is 10 years behind in infrastructure, and yet you push on. If you cared for the citizens, you would listen. Why bother making comments? Because this town has become a traffic nightmare because of your lack of planning. Just stand out on 70 or see the cars pushing through downtown to try to avoid traffic. There is nothing more than ramming a project down the citizens' throat. And we, the citizens, have to live with it because of your lack of futuristic planning. And he also stated, and yes, I have planning experience. There's another email from Kelly Daughtry. She wrote, please vote to welcome businesses to this area. I understand there are taxes, fees involved in having businesses there. However, there are schools that are going to need to be built too if there is more housing built there. This is an area that would greatly benefit from having commercial real estate. Please consider voting to help improve the commercial growth of Clayton. The next email was from Kathleen Stefanich. I am contacting you about the proposed rezoning of the shops of Glen Laurel to reduce shops and add or increase assisted living and apartments. I really hope this doesn't happen. I live in Summerlin off Glen Laurel Road and have been really looking forward to shops nearby. Right now, I have to travel about 25 minutes to Gardner or Smithfield for shopping. With 2 children under 2 years old, that means I just don't go or shop online. Those are long trips for little guys, and if they fall asleep in the car, the nap, and my ability to accomplish anything for the day is ruined. We choose this neighborhood to be able to be near Seymour Johnson while still allowing my husband to maintain split custody of his older boys in Holly Springs. Unfortunately, we gave up the convenience of shops we were near in Cary. Surprisingly, the taxes here are comparable to Cary without near the amenities. However, with the planned growth in the area, we were confident this would make a great place to live, to include the modern conveniences of more shops and restaurants. I love our neighborhood as it reminds me of Midwestern friendliness, where we all know each other, but the lack of much nearby is a bit isolating. I was secretly hoping an Aldi would go nearby, and also possibly an ice cream shop, so we could send the boys on bikes to get groceries with some money to get a treat for their efforts. I refused to live in Fuquay-Varina when my husband and I married because of all the growth there in housing without infrastructure and amenities. Lots of traffic just to go to another town to work or shop. Thank you for taking your time to read my letter. Next one is from Robert Hunt. My name is Robert B. Hunt. I have lived at 1441 NC 42 East in Clayton since June 1980. I just turned 80 years old. While I'm very healthy and swim and bike daily, the day may come when I may need a care facility. It would be assuring to me that my family to know there is a quality facility nearby. I have 2 adult children who live within walking distance of my home, who are also within walking distance of the proposed facility. All our family would like to have such a facility close to us. We have been pleased with the apartments, storage facility, and credit union, which have been built by the Tillman/Brown business so far. We feel they care about our community. Thank you for the opportunity to voice my feeling to the town of Clayton. And the last one is from Sarah Foster. Dear Chrissy and Haley, I am writing in support of the application made by Kate Tillman Beck Brown and Brantley Tillman of Commercial Properties for rezoning an additional 10 acres to add senior living and assisted living to their mixed-use development on Glen, Laurel, and Highway 42 East. I grew up across the highway since 1980 and now have moved back to live on the land with my family. My parents still live on the same land and are in their 80s. I think a senior living residence would be a good use of land. Thank you for allowing me to voice my opinion. Please let me know if you have any questions. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. We will now hear from staff.
Good evening, Planning Board. Haley Hogue, Planner 2. Just to recap this rezoning request, it is for the Shops at Glen Laurel Plan Development rezoning. They're requesting to rezone 10.5 acres from residential estate to plan development mixed use. And the property is located off of Glen Laurel Road, just south of the existing master development Shops at Glen Laurel. And the property that is being proposed for rezoning is currently vacant. This is the current zoning map compared to the proposed zoning map. You can see the northern properties are already zoned plan development mixed use, and that is the rest of the Shops at Glen Laurel master plan development. And this rezoning would be consistent with that development. The proposed rezoning is consistent with the future land use map designation of medium density residential and neighborhood center, specifically in the comp plan goal LU1 to preserve Clayton's small town character while allowing for growth and development in appropriate areas. It is consistent with that goal. And it's also consistent with the surrounding land uses, which are commercial, residential, and industrial. And just a reminder, a separate application was submitted for the master plan modification to add this land to that master plan. And that master plan is what outlines the proposed uses. So tonight, planning board is only making a recommendation on the rezoning, and the master plan would go to town council for final review and decision. And then we did receive public comment, as Christy read into the record. And I'll turn it back over to the board for deliberation.
Thank you, Haley. At this time, are there any additional comments from the board? If there are none, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chairman, I move approval.
I have a motion by Board Member Bizzle. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second from Board Member Price. There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, I will now turn it over to the board clerk for voting.
In order to ensure the record reflects the vote for this item, please indicate your vote when I call your name. Brian Teed,
Yes.
James Lipscomb,
Yes.
Bucky Coates,
Yes.
Andrea Merritt,
Yes.
Frank Price,
Yes.
James Moore,
Yes.
Marty Bizzle.
Yes.
Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is informal discussion and public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak at this time? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
I have a motion by Board Member Lipscomb. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Board Member Bizzle. I'll turn it over to the board clerk for voting.
Okay, in order to ensure the record reflects the vote for this item, please indicate your vote when I call your name. Brian Teed,
Yes.
James Lipscomb,
Yes.
Bucky Coates,
Yes.
Andrea Merritt,
Yes.
Frank Price,
Yes.
James Moore,
Yes.
Marty Bizzle.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Meeting is adjourned.